The following video was recorded in Colombia in February of 2021. In it, a young man can be seen leaned up against the guardrails of a bridge, being interrogated by two older men.
¿Eres o no eres? ¿Ah?
¿Eres de dónde? ¿De qué país es? Diga ahí, ¿de dónde?
Upon hearing that he was from the country of Peru, one of the men did the unthinkable. Before the young man even had time to react, he was picked up and flipped over the guardrail, which he was leaning on. The rest of the video cannot be shown. However, it depicts the young man falling hundreds of feet. The video quickly garnered major media attention due to its disturbing nature. Many assumed it had been a targeted attack, but this turned out not to be the case. The young man from this video was later identified as 19-year-old Silvano Cantero from Peru. He had left for Colombia just 1 month prior to the video in hopes of making money. According to reports, Silvano was convinced by a man named Andres in his hometown to fly with him to Colombia, where they could buy discounted clothes and sell them for profit upon their return to Peru. This was a lie. Andres would later extort Silvano for his money and leave him stranded in Colombia. Silvano could not leave until his sister sent him money. She was in the process of doing so when the tragic event occurred. She would later find out what happened to her brother when the video was shown on social networks around Peru. According to Colombian authorities, the two perpetrators were Venezuelan nationals visiting Colombia. They believe that the perpetrators committed this atrocious act for no other reason than the fact that Silvano was from Peru. There are several theories as to why they would have had a problem with this. However, investigators have not confirmed anything. The perpetrators remain at large. Gregory Allman was an American rock legend, best known for performing in the Allman Brothers Band with his brother Duane Allman. In 2014, a biographical film directed by Randall Miller, titled Midnight Rider, went into production, intended to tell the story of Allman's life. On February 20th, 2014, the film crew was shooting a scene on a narrow bridge with train tracks spanning the Altamaha River near Jessup, Georgia. The planned scene involved actor William Hurt, who portrayed Allman, lying on a hospital bed placed directly on the train tracks. Raw footage from that day shows William Hurt positioned on the bed in the middle of the bridge. What happens next is terrifying. Suddenly, a crew member spots a train hurtling toward the bridge at 55 miles per hour. The crew's cameras capture the chaos as everyone scrambles to escape the tracks, with the train closing in each passing second. The crew rushes to get off the bridge, equipment in hand, but unfortunately, the train was already too close. Camera footage from the train shows it barreling toward the crew at high speed. Tragically, they didn't make it off the bridge in time. Assistant camerawoman Sarah Jones was struck, losing her life instantly. 7 other crew members were also injured in the impact. Emergency responders were called to the scene, but it was already too late for Sarah Jones. The incident immediately drew attention from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board, both of which launched investigations into the circumstances leading to Sarah Jones's death. Their findings revealed that the film's producer, Randall Miller, had been warned multiple times by CSX, the railway company operating the line, that the tracks were active and that filming was not permitted. Despite this, Miller chose to proceed without authorization, reasoning that he could just place lookouts near the bridge to warn of any oncoming trains. That decision ultimately cost Sarah Jones her life. On March 9, 2015, Randall Miller pleaded guilty to felony involuntary manslaughter and criminal trespassing. Despite his actions leading to the death of a crew member, he served only 1 year in jail. Although the Midnight Rider incident significantly impacted his career, Miller continues to direct films to this day. The tragic loss of Sarah Jones sent shockwaves through the film industry, sparking renewed conversations about safety standards on set and the importance of safeguarding crew members' lives. Her death became a catalyst for change, with production companies and unions advocating for stricter safety protocols to prevent similar tragedies in the future. On January 2nd, 2023, Nashali Alma was exercising alone in the gym of her apartment complex when she noticed a man standing at the entrance. He seemed familiar, and when he gestured for her to let him in, she assumed he had forgotten his key. Trusting her instincts, she opened the door for him. Moments later, he launched a sudden attack. Alone, and without anyone nearby to help, Nashali instantly defended herself. What her attacker didn't realize was that she was a dedicated gym enthusiast, with impressive strength for her size. Though he tried to overpower her by forcing her to the ground, Nashali fought back. She managed to trap him in a headlock and used the moment to call 911. The entire incident was recorded on the gym's surveillance cameras. Thankfully, Nashali escaped the encounter without any injuries. The assailant, identified as Xavier, was arrested within 24 hours and charged with sexual battery, false imprisonment, and kidnapping. During questioning, he admitted that his motives were sexual, claiming he targeted her because he thought she was attractive. Today, Nashali works as a personal trainer for women and is using her experience to empower others. She hopes her story encourages more women to take self-defense seriously and reminds everyone of the importance of fighting back and never giving up. Anna Uskova was a lawyer from St. Petersburg, Russia. In January of 2022, she drove to the Orodezh River, just south of St. Petersburg. Petersburg, for Orthodox Epiphany. In many parts of Russia, it's customary to take a plunge into icy water on the day of the Epiphany or the evening before to commemorate the baptism of Christ. This is exactly what the 41-year-old mother of two set out to do with her family. On Wednesday, January 19th, Anna can be seen on video, taking a plunge into a cross-shaped hole cut into the river. She was subsequently carried away by a strong current. Her husband, Yuri, can be seen jumping into the water after her, but is unable to find her. The rest of the video shows Anna's family panicking and calling out for her. Russian authorities estimated that the current of the Orodezh River was moving at a rate of 10 feet per second when Anna jumped in. Although she intended to take a plunge and quickly resurface, she was carried away before she could react. The most harrowing part of the video, however, is the fact that Anna was with her two children, aged 10 and 14, at the time. Shortly after Anna jumped in the water, a rescue team was called out to search for her. Many divers were involved in the effort, but were unsuccessful. On January 28th of 2022, however, the body of Anna Uskova was found, approximately 1 kilometer away from the icy hole. Francis Littlejohn was a 29-year-old father of 3 from Oklahoma City. At around 4 a.m. on August 6, 2022, police received a call from one of his family members after seeing a disturbing live stream he had posted on Facebook. In it, Littlejohn is clearly distressed, claiming that the mother of his children had allegedly given him an STD after being unfaithful. The situation became all the more frightening when those watching the live stream realized that Littlejohn had his kids with him in the car.
Hey, this is so fun. Look at my son right here. I just told him I'm finna kill him. You hear me? That's fucking fucked up, cuz, on my soul. But see, everybody think I'm joking, right? I'm playing, right? Everybody think I'm playing, right? Right, okay. This gonna be the last time. This be the last video I make. God rest my soul. Wook, Ovia Foreman, you are responsible for your part in this too. You chose to be a destroyer, right? It's okay, fine. You hold this. Take this with you. Tater, wow. After everything I gave you, cuz. After everything, all I wanted was a conversation. Told you, all you had to do was talk to me. All I wanted was conversation. That's it. I wanted you to be woman enough to look me in my fucking eyes, nigga. The 13 years of my life, nigga, give it to you. And cut me loose. Look me in my face and break me loose, nigga. Look, break my heart. Look me in my eyes and break my heart. But you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You want to go lay up with niggas and get fucked and whatever the case. You're slick, my nigga. You lied, my nigga. You're a habitual cheater, my nigga. And you have given yourself to men. You have given me STD behind this. Like, I'm not paranoid, cuz. You hear me? You fucked another niggas recklessly. I forgave you for it. You won't even come home, baby. You won't even come home like I'm a sucker. So watch this, Scala. Watch this. Yeah. And carry this torch, baby. And no, I gave you a choice. And you chose this. Oh, you're so scared, right? Okay.
Less than 20 minutes after the live stream ended, police were already out, searching for Littlejohn. Unfortunately, however, it was too late. At 7:30 a.m. that same day, a jogger found Littlejohn's white Dodge SUV parked in a residential neighborhood with the engine still running. Inside were the lifeless bodies of 3-year-old Trinity, 4-year-old Alia, 6-year-old Kieran, and Francis Littlejohn. On the evening of April 15th, 2014, the ferry MV Sewol set sail from Incheon, South Korea, carrying 476 passengers. Its destination, Jeju City on Jeju Island, just over 50 miles from the mainland. Unfortunately, the ship never reached its intended destination. Although the MV Sewol was designed to carry a maximum of 987 tons of cargo, it was overloaded, with over 2,000 tons on this trip. Much of that cargo had been improperly secured. This dangerous situation set the stage for disaster. Early in the morning of April 16th, as the ferry traversed the Mangal Channel, an area notorious for its strong currents, third mate Park Hanel executed a turn that was much sharper than intended. The abrupt maneuver caused the unsecured, overloaded cargo to shift, dramatically destabilizing the vessel. Within minutes, the ship began to tilt, uncontrollably, to one side, which caused it to sink. As the ship was taking on water, the crew issued instructions over the intercom, urging passengers to stay where they were and to put on life jackets. This guidance would ultimately lead to devastating consequences. At this time, several passengers began recording videos on their phones, documenting the scene. In some of these recordings, passengers can even be seen laughing, oblivious to the true severity of the unfolding disaster. The passengers initially remained calm, assuming that help would arrive quickly. Although multiple distress calls had been sent out, the severe tilt of the ship made rescue efforts nearly impossible. To make matters worse, The crew's instructions for passengers to stay put led many to remain exactly where they were, rather than attempting to reach the deck and escape into the water, where they could have been rescued. As the situation worsened, passengers began sending desperate text messages to their families and loved ones. Shockingly, while the crew, including Captain Lee Jun-seok, had instructed passengers to stay put, they themselves did not follow those orders. Instead, they abandoned ship, jumping into the water, where they were quickly rescued by the Coast Guard and other vessels. The passengers, meanwhile, waited for further instructions, completely unaware that the crew had left them behind to fend for themselves. By 1 p.m., the vessel was completely submerged, claiming the lives of 304 of the 476 people on board. The tragedy was made even more devastating by the fact that many of the passengers could have been saved if they had not followed the crew's directive to remain inside. Those who managed to reach the deck or jump into the water, like Captain Lee, were easily rescued. The most heart-wrenching aspect of the disaster was that 250 of the 304 victims were teenage students from Danwon High School in Ansan, who had been aboard the ferry for a school trip. The aftermath of the MV Sewol disaster plunged South Korea into national mourning. Public outrage erupted over the actions of Captain Lee Jun-seok and his crew, whose negligence and poor response to the disaster made the situation significantly worse. Captain Lee, who abandoned ship, was arrested and later sentenced to life in prison for homicide through gross negligence. Several other crew members also received lengthy prison sentences for their roles in the tragedy. The disaster also claimed lives indirectly, including that of Kang Min-kyu, the vice principal of Danwon High School, who was rescued from the ship, but sadly took his own life 2 days after the incident. Although he bore no responsibility for the sinking of the Sewol, Kang had organized the school trip and was overcome with guilt, believing himself accountable for the deaths of his students. The sinking of the MV Sewol remains one of the most devastating tragedies in South Korea's history, not only because of the significant loss of life, but also because so many of those lives could have been saved had the disaster been handled differently. In the quiet town of Luton, England, a teenager was secretly plotting something horrifying. Not fame, not fortune, but notoriety through mass murder. Nicholas Prosper was just 18 years old, but his mind was consumed with violence. While most teenagers his age were dreaming of careers, relationships, or university life, Nicholas had a different goal. He wanted to become the most notorious mass shooter the UK had ever seen. He idolized American mass killers, especially Adam Lanza, the man behind the Sandy Hook tragedy, and he wasn't hiding that. Nicholas studied past shootings obsessively, took notes, and even wrote to himself, one of the biggest events ever. That event was a massacre, one he hoped would leave 30 or more dead, including his own family. In 2024, Nicholas lived in a flat on Wallsbank Drive in Luton with his mother and 2 siblings. By then, he had completely withdrawn from society, barely speaking to friends, spending hours online, and growing darker in his thoughts. He picked his target carefully, St. Joseph's Primary School, the school he had once attended. He knew the layout, the security, and the schedule. There was no history of bullying, no revenge motive, just cold, calculated planning. He even chose the date for maximum impact, Friday the 13th. In August 2024, he tried and failed to get a gun, but he didn't give up. On September 12th, Nicholas managed to buy a double-barrel shotgun and 100 cartridges using a fake firearms license. He paid £650 for it, and it worked. The dealer believed the license was real, but luckily, he reported it to the police. Authorities quickly confirmed the license was a forgery. but by then, it was already too late. Hours before the attack, Nicholas fired a test shot at a teddy bear in his bedroom. It was around 4:30 a.m. His mother, Juliana, heard the noise and came to check. What followed was horrific. Nicholas shot and killed his mother. Then, he laid a copy of the book, How to Kill Your Family, on her body, a sick, symbolic gesture. His sister Giselle was next. She was awake now, confused and frightened. He fired once, then again. The second shot hit her in the face as she tried to hide. Then came his brother, Kyle. Kyle tried to defend himself with a knife, but Nicholas shot him in the chest. Not stopping there, he stabbed him repeatedly as Kyle begged for his life. Finally, Nicholas shot him in the head at point-blank range. Miraculously, Kyle survived. At 5:29 a.m., a neighbor heard the commotion and called 999, but Nicholas was already gone. He was on his way to St. Joseph's Primary School, carrying a reloaded shotgun, 33 cartridges, and wearing a bizarre yellow and black outfit, a uniform he had prepared for his massacre. When he got there, the school was still closed, so he hid in a wooded area for over 2 hours. While waiting, he posted a disturbing video online, disposed of 2 phones, and tried to cover his tracks, even claiming it was to protect a group of pedophiles he had spoken to on social media. Eventually, he abandoned the shotgun and ammunition in a bush near a playing field. At 7:55 a.m., Nicholas made a strange decision. He walked out from the woods and flagged down a passing police car. With blood still on his face, he told officers, "It's not murder." But it was.
Okay, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something today's trial in court. Anything you do say may be given as evidence. What road are we on? Birmingham Road. 426, priority. Birmingham Road, I think we've got the offender.
It's not murder.
Yes, we've got a male here, he's presented himself to us. Can we just get another unit down here, please?
Nicholas Prosper was arrested on the spot. He was later charged with 3 counts of murder and several other offences. On March 19th, 2025, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 49 years to be served.
So, as I explained, you've been arrested on suspicion of the murder of Juliana Falcon, who's your mum, Giselle Prosper, who's your sister, Kyle Prosper, who's your brother, earlier on today. You've also been arrested on suspicion of possession of a firearm and possession of a bladed article. Okay, the reason that you're suspected of that is because you presented yourself to the police, you had a knife on you, and you showed them where a gun was. So that's why we're going to question you about that. Nicholas, we've explained what you've been arrested on suspicion of, okay, and what you said after. We'd like you to tell us about any involvement that you have had with the deaths of Juliana Falcon, Kyle Prosper and Giselle Prosper. We'd like to tell you about any involvement that you've had with them at all in their murders.
No comments.
Did you kill them?
No comments.
Obviously, it's a fact that, they're dead now. Okay, so that's why we're here talking about it. Are you aware of that?
No comments.
Because you've got no comment, I'm going to carry on with my own topics, okay? Giving you the chance to talk about any involvement you've had. Because I've never met you before, I'd like to know a bit about your background. I know your name is Nicholas and you're 18, but that's about it, really. Do you want to tell me about your background?
No comments.
About where you live?
No comments.
Tell me about your family?
No comments.
Tell me about any friends you have?
No comments.
Do you work?
No comments.
Or are you in any kind of education?
No comments.
How do you support yourself financially?
No comments.
Do you get any kind of benefits?
No comments.
Or do your parents give you money?
No comments.
Do you see both of your parents?
No comments.
Have you got any mental health issues?
No comments.
Do you receive any treatment for any mental health issues?
No comments.
Have you been diagnosed with any neurodiversity or mental health issues?
No comments.
Or do you think you've got any mental health issues but they've been undiagnosed?
No comments.
What are your hobbies?
No comments.
What do you do with your spare time?
No comments.
Are you religious?
No comments.
Do you take part in any kind of religion?
No comments.
Or do you just believe in a religion?
No comments.
Nicholas Prosper wanted infamy. He wanted to be remembered. But instead of becoming a feared name in history, he became something else entirely. A failed killer, a broken mind, and a chilling reminder of how darkness can grow in silence and isolation. On February 13th, 2017, two young girls were walking a historic trail in Indiana on their way to a predetermined pickup spot where one of their fathers would be waiting. This is when they came across an old railway bridge, which is a common attraction for the locals. But as they began to cross it, they noticed that they were being followed by a strange man. With nowhere else to go, they pressed forward, quickening their pace. But he only seemed to be matching their pace. Feeling extremely uneasy, one of the girls began secretly recording to try to get the man on camera. However, Liberty and Abigail were never seen again. But this video would become key evidence in finding the attacker 5 years later. The video was hidden from the public to not contaminate the case, but it has recently been released in full. Here's that video.
See, this is the path that we go down. There's no path going there, so we have to go down here.
The case itself struggled to get leads until September 2022, when a misfiled tip was found. This tip was brought by Richard Allen, who said he was there that day and saw the two girls, but due to a clerical error, he was marked as cleared. The following month, he was charged with both murders. The video itself helped verify parts of his story, and while incarcerated, he admitted to the crime over 60 times. In addition, a spent bullet casing helped put him behind bars for 130 years. He is now trying to appeal. But what angers me most is that some people still advocate for his innocence, and I honestly hope he gets what he deserves in jail. In December of 2022, the authorities in Northern Ireland came across a bizarre crime scene where the most likely suspect was somehow in two places at once. It all started on the 18th of December when Irish YouTuber VoteSaxon07, whose real identity is 33-year-old Stephen McCullen, live-streamed himself playing GTA Vice City. The stream started at around 6 p.m, and Stephen stayed live for about 6 hours till midnight. The stream itself was quite unremarkable, with Stephen playing the game mostly in silence, broken by his occasional commentary. Unfortunately, while he was streaming comfortably in his home, his 32-year-old girlfriend, Natalie McNally, was going through something downright horrific. Stephen, however, was completely unaware of this and promptly went to sleep after ending the stream. The next day, he woke up to a barrage of calls and messages regarding Natalie. She was apparently at her parents' house the night before to watch the World Cup finale. The match ended at around 6 p.m, and Natalie went back to her home shortly after, which wasn't too far away. She lived alone in Northern Ireland with her 2 cats and a dog. However, the next day, no one could get through to Natalie. She didn't show up to work and wasn't picking up her phone either. At the time, she was also 15 weeks pregnant with Stephen's child, so when she went silent, her friends and family grew worried, fearing she was facing some health concerns. After learning about her absence and waiting a few hours for a response, Stephen went to her home, which was about 20 minutes away from his home in Lisbon. Unfortunately, he was too late. When Stephen arrived at Natalie's home, the door was wide open. Inside, he found her lifeless on the floor. She had been killed.
Detectives from the Major Investigation Team have now launched a murder investigation following the death of Natalie McNally in Lurgan. This follows the results of the post-mortem. The 32-year-old died a violent death, having been stabbed a number of times, and there are signs of defensive injuries. She was murdered at her home in the Silverwood Green area of the town, and evidence now suggests that she was murdered on the night of Sunday the 18th of December. Officers were called to the property along with colleagues from the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service. Sadly, Natalie was pronounced dead at the scene. It is distressing to add that Natalie was in fact 15 weeks pregnant. This fatal attack, which happened in her own home, has therefore resulted in a double tragedy: the death of a mother-to-be along with her unborn baby. I am asking anyone with information about this murder to please come forward. In particular, I am appealing to motorists who were travelling on the Killen Road, Lurgan, on Sunday the 18th of December between 8:45 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. and who may have captured dash cam footage of this journey.
The post-mortem report showed that she was killed on the night of December 18th, not long after she came back from her parents' home. However, investigators did not find any evidence of forced entry into her home. This, combined with the fact that Stephen was the one who reported her death to the police, made him the lead suspect in her murder investigation, and he was arrested shortly after. However, this arrest didn't last long because, as the authorities quickly found out, Stephen had a strong alibi. According to the post-mortem report, Natalie was killed during the same time Stephen was live streaming from his home.
Hey, and we're live. Hello, everyone. Yeah, a little bit out of the blue, this, isn't it? So, hello to all on this glorious Sunday evening. Yeah, so I just thought, why not? I'm gonna do a live stream because this day next week is Christmas. So what more could you want for Christmas other than an evening with your old pal Stephen? I wanted to do a live stream, and I've been wanting to do one for quite some time now. Only trouble is there's a couple of elements, shall we say, that have been preventing me from doing anything. Mostly it has been work, and it has been stuff in my private life. It's also been the fact that this computer is on its last legs, the fact that I've had so many YouTube videos to work through. It's all been a bit of a nightmare.
Investigators looked through Natalie's phone and found the last text Stephen sent to her at 5:57 p.m, which read, "Right, I'm off to stream the night away. Wish me luck." To which Natalie replied, "I might have a peek at your live stream later." This was enough to clear Stephen's name of any wrongdoing, but it left investigators with no clear direction on where to look next. Stephen did give them the name of someone he suspected. However, investigating that person didn't lead to any breakthrough in the case either, and the name of this person was never made public for this reason. Luckily, detectives found CCTV footage a few days later, showing a man dressed in dark clothes and white shoes heading towards Natalie's home at 8:52 p.m, and then the same person going back about 40 minutes later. Given his timing, investigators determined that this was the killer. Shockingly, he had the same height and build as Stephen. This put him on the radar once again, but it also raised a valid question. If Stephen was the perpetrator, how could he be in two places at the same time? Without any other option, the authorities put out a £20,000 reward for information regarding the killer and continued investigating. They also feared that by the time they started this investigation, the killer could have easily fled to any of the neighboring countries. In the meantime, Natalie's case had become national news, resulting in multiple memorials around the country. This put even more pressure on the investigators to find the killer as quickly as possible. They made several arrests and even seized the suspect's car. Investigators also found the weapon the killer used on the 5th of January 2023, which was a knife from her own home. However, none of these developments brought them any closer to identifying the killer. That is, until January 31st, when they arrested Stephen again, but this time with solid evidence. As it turns out, the only thing keeping him out of suspicion, the live stream, was completely fake. The whole thing was pre-recorded and broadcasted to simply look like a live stream. After his arrest, investigators went through his computer and found the original recording, which was made on the 14th of December, 4 days before the incident. They also found a taxi driver who described picking up someone matching Stephen's profile near the murder scene at 9:30 p.m. and then dropping this person near Stephen's house. Most importantly, according to the taxi driver, this passenger had forgotten his wallet at home, so he quickly ran inside his house to get the money. And as expected, he ran into Stephen's home. All this evidence left no doubt that Stephen was the one who went to Natalie's home to commit a predetermined crime. In hindsight, there were plenty of suspicious moments during the fake live stream that should have raised more alarms. For starters, the stream was titled The Violent Night Christmas Live Gaming Stream. At the start of the stream, Stephen also claimed that he was having technical issues with the streaming software, which he used as an excuse as to why he wouldn't be able to interact with the live chat.
Well, because this streaming software is kind of up the left, it means I can't check the live chat, which is a real shame. So, by all means, talk amongst yourselves.
This ensured that no one questioned why he wasn't talking with his viewers, which is essentially the whole point of doing a stream instead of posting a pre-recorded video. At the start of the stream, Stephen repeatedly mentioned what day it was.
So, hello to all on this glorious Sunday evening. So I just thought, why not? I'm gonna do a live stream because this day next week is Christmas. So what more could you want for Christmas other than an evening with your old pal Stephen?
This was likely an effort to make his alibi stronger and to say, look, I was streaming the same night. I even mentioned the day at the beginning. On top of that, many moments in the stream also took on a far more disturbing meaning after the truth came out, like him singing about killing someone in game, which can also be interpreted as him cryptically talking about his girlfriend.
Need to kill it. I need to take her down. 'Cause I won't pass the mission if I don't get this to talk. La.
At another point during the stream, he makes a pun that sounds like Natalie's name and finds it unusually amusing.
Yeah, that's physics. That's what would happen in the real world. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The most creepy moment, however, was about halfway through the stream while he was on break. Suddenly, the live stream back soon graphic switched with a poster of a James Bond movie called No Time to Die. Stephen later claimed that this was an accident. He accidentally dropped his controller on the keypad, which made the strange graphic come up. But since we now know that the live stream was pre-recorded, Stephen deliberately included this graphic at this point during the editing, likely alluding to the crime he was going to commit on that day. This theory becomes even more credible once you consider the fact that this movie poster came up at about 9:15 p.m, which perfectly aligns with the time he was at Natalie's house committing the brutal crime. That said, his clever schemes were derailed and he was charged with murder. He was also refused bail, and at the time of writing, he's awaiting trial on May 6, 2025. Hopefully Natalie and her family can get the justice they deserve.